The Steelers signed two players in NFL free agency. Terrell Edmunds heads to Philly, and Bud Dupree has scheduled a visit with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We cover all this and more on today's episode of Steelers Talk. Welcome into the show, Yinzers. My name is Jack Sperry. We're going to be breaking down these topics in just a second, but first, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. If the Steelers end up signing someone like a Bud Dupree in the coming days and hours potentially, you're going to want to make sure you're subscribed to the channel because we're going to be having a video for you here on Steelers Talk. So do me a favor, make sure that you click that subscribe button to join the fastest growing Steelers channel here on YouTube. Now let's get into some of the signings that the Pittsburgh Steelers made over the weekend here. LaRaven Clark, offensive tackle, formerly with the Tennessee Titans, former third-round pick, has been in the league for a long time. The Steelers signed him to a one-year, about $1.2 million deal. He's going to be a swing tackle. That's what he's going to be for the Steelers, guys. Backup role behind whoever the starting tackles for the Pittsburgh Steelers are this season. He's a solid guy that has played in this league before. If the injury bug hits the offensive line of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he can play either left or right tackle. He's somebody that has experience. And if you take a look at the Steelers' offensive line right now, you got Dan Moore Jr. there, Nate Herbig. The interior of the offensive line right now is definitely a question mark. Right now, if I would have to guess, I would say James Daniels gets moved over to center, and then Herbig and Sayamalu are going to be your guards, and then Chukwuma Okorafor over there at right tackle. But you still got Kevin Dotson and Mason Cole on the roster, both starters for the Steelers last year. So it'll be interesting to see what Mike Tomlin, Matt Canada, and Omar Khan have in store for the interior of the Steelers' offensive line. And I want to talk a little bit about what this means for Dan Moore Jr. and his future with the Pittsburgh Steelers, because it's like, okay, they signed a backup tackle. Does that mean that they're okay with sticking with Dan Moore Jr.? Personally, I'm not too sure. He allowed 11 sacks last year, and he throughout his career, he's been very underwhelming, even though he was a fourth round pick. The expectations weren't through the roof for this guy. But at the end of the day, I think that the Steelers are still looking for his replacement. I think that Dan Moore Jr. has never been the most powerful type of offensive tackle. He's much more of a zone tackle than a power tackle. And right now the Steelers are trying to establish that power run game. So I think that they're going to try to find somebody that fits that mold a bit, maybe a Donovan Smith in free agency, or maybe like a Broderick Jones in the draft. I think that they really want to get somebody with a power blocking skill set at the left tackle position. And I think that at the end of the day, they're going to make a move, whether it's in the draft, whether it's in free agency. I would prefer them to go get one of the top three tackles in this year's draft class, but at number 17, it might be difficult to get one of those top three guys. So will the Pittsburgh Steelers have a new left tackle next season, or will they stick with Dan Moore Jr.? Type Y if you think they'll have someone new, or type N if you think they will stick with Dan Moore Jr. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So here's what's going to happen, guys. YouTube is going to throw an ad break your way here in just a second, just the way it works. Can't do anything about it, but you can do something about it here during that ad break. Go into the comments section and answer today's question. For me, I think it's going to be somebody new, whether it be through the draft, whether it be through free agency. I think the Steelers will have a new left tackle in 2023. Then the other player that they signed or otherwise re-signed this weekend was Zach Gentry, blocking tight end. And this is somebody that I was wondering if the Steelers were going to get. Now, we don't know the money figures at the time of recording this video, but we know it's a one-year deal. And he's somebody that, man, he's a massive human being at 6'8", 265 pounds. He's a really, really good blocking tight end, and I can't wait to see what his role is going to be in this new power smash mouth running scheme that the Steelers are trying to implement. So I think that at the end of the day, this keeps Pittsburgh's options open at tight end. Now, you already have Pat Freiermuth and Connor Hayward on the roster. Those are kind of your more receiving tight ends. And with Zach Gentry hitting the free agency market this year, it was definitely a need for the Steelers to grab a blocking tight end. And it looks like that they might be opting to go and bring back the guy they had last year that did a pretty darn good job. And I look at Connor Hayward here. He kind of, bringing back Zach Gentry kind of puts him down the totem pole a little bit here on the tight end depth chart. But I think what's actually going to happen with a guy like Connor Hayward is that they're gonna play him more at fullback. I think at 6 foot, 230 pounds, he's got a good fullback frame. I think that he can be one of the best receiving fullbacks and be a true receiving weapon as a fullback in this offense, because you look at teams like the Miami Dolphins, you look at teams like the San Francisco 49ers with Juszczyk. If you have a receiving threat at fullback, that's something that can really catch defenses off guard. I think Connor Hayward can be one of those guys, and although he's pretty solid as a receiving kind of smaller tight end, I think he could be really, really good as an H-back, as a fullback. I think he can be a good blocker there. I think he could become one of the best fullbacks in the National Football League, if we're being honest. And if they don't bring back Derek Watt this offseason, I would expect Connor Hayward to play more H-back next season. So now let's transition to the Terrell Edmunds news, which is that he has signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. And pretty much the deal shows us here, the contract details shows us that the Steelers just didn't want to bring him back, right? 1 year, $2 million. It's a very cheap deal for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it tells me that if the Steelers wanted him back, they could have had him back. And I think that what this tells me is it means either two things. Number one, Pittsburgh thinks that Terrell Edmunds is not that good, and they didn't want to bring him back, and they want a new strong safety. They want to replace him with somebody. Or it means that they are good with Damontae Kazee and Minkah Fitzpatrick moving into the future. Which one it is, I'm not exactly sure right now, but if I'd have to guess, I would say it's probably option B. Okay, so you sign Damontae Kazee to a multi-year deal. You have Minkah Fitzpatrick under contract for multiple years at this point. I think that unless there's a guy like Brian Branch available early on in the draft, I think they're cool sticking with Damontae Kazee and Minkah Fitzpatrick. We take a look at the safety depth chart for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. You could probably use another backup safety in case one of these guys get hurt, because I do not trust Norwood, Riley, or Killebrew to come in if one of these guys gets hurt. But you look at this right now, I think that the Steelers would probably play more two high man coverages, two safeties, two high safeties, because Minkah Fitzpatrick doesn't like playing in the box. That's the reason why he asked for or demanded a trade out of Miami, because he didn't feel like they were using him the right way. And then Damontae Kazee's 170 pounds. You don't see a whole lot of box safeties, strong safeties at 170 pounds. So I think if the Steelers decide to go with these two guys, they're going to be going with a lot of two high safety shells, lots of cover 4, lots of maybe transitioning down into cover 3, post snap, lots of cover 6. Those kinds of things is what I would expect if they roll with these two safeties, because Minkah doesn't like playing in the box, and I don't think Kazee is built to play in the box either. So let me know in the comments section right now, will the Steelers add another safety this offseason, whether it be through free agency or through the draft? Let me know, will the Steelers add another safety to their ranks? Type 1 if you think yes, or type 0 if you think no. So now the big news coming out of this weekend, and maybe the most hopeful news, is that Bud Dupree now has a scheduled visit with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Bud Dupree, man, I think that he's a really good player. I think that he's somebody, when healthy, can be a really, really dynamic talent for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially because if the Steelers bring him in, it's going to be more as like a rotational pass rusher. It's going to be more of a third down role for Bud Dupree, somebody that can come in on third down and relieve TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and get you sacks in those kind of third and long, kind of those obvious passing situations. I think that that's exactly what he's built to do. And if he stays healthy and frankly, that reduced role for him should keep him on the field for longer because he doesn't have as much of a workload. I think he could be really successful with the Pittsburgh Steelers yet again. And, what's interesting about this is that they're bringing him in for a visit, but it's not like he needs to meet the staff or check out the facilities. He knows all that stuff. So what this tells me is that the Steelers want to do a full medical check on Bud Dupree before they make any kind of investment in him. He's had a number of injuries. He's had an ACL tear in his career. He's dealt with a number of injuries throughout his playing days, and I just think that they want to make sure that everything is okay medically before that they make any sort of commitment towards this guy and putting them in their lineup. So the question now is, I think a lot of people are assuming that this is a done deal, and I'm one of those people. I think that if the medical stuff checks out and if the money lines up, and it likely does, I think he's going to be a Steeler yet again. And I would be super excited if this happens, guys, because you already look at what the Steelers have with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, one of the best pass rushing duos in the National Football League. And then you add a guy like Bud Dupree, who has had success in this defense before, and you're bringing him in as a third pass rusher, man, this pass rush just gets even more dangerous, and I think that this defense gets that much better. So would you bring back Bud Dupree if you were Omar Khan? Hell yes in the comments section, or hell no. For me, if the money's right, if the medical checks out, it is a huge hell yes for me. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's show. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel right now. If Bud Dupree signs this afternoon, we are going to have a video for you. So make sure that you are subscribed and turn on your notifications to make sure that you get access to all of our breaking news content here on the channel.